All right. Thanks for coming back to the Bigfoot Society podcast. I have the privilege of having Mr. Kai Wada Roath with me. Nope. Oh, dang it. I said it wrong. Oh, okay. Let's try one more time. Wait. I got it. Kai Wada Roath.
Yeah.
Like oath. Yes. I usually mispronounce something wrong once every episode. So we just got it out of the way right away. Thanks, Kai, so much for coming on. You come up every 2 to 3 episodes because you were the guy that put together something called Bigfoot Bonanza, correct?
Correct.
And it is like, so, in like the Back to the Future movies, you have like October 5th, 1955, and you have like these dates in history they try to go back to. I think that besides the Patterson Gimlin thing, but I think Bigfoot Bonanza had so much going, like everyone really talks about that a lot, man. Do you mind like talking about what Bigfoot Bonanza was?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I thought it'd be really fun, and fun is the most important thing for me.
Totally.
I thought it'd be fun to have, and this is pretty crazy, to have 3 days of Bigfoot movies.
Oh man.
Playing on 2 screens in a haunted and historic movie theater in San Francisco. And then just to invite people who could come and talk. I had Cliff Barrickman, I had Kathy Screen, I had Mantra, I had Flippy, and show some of the films, Seth Breedlove's films, and show their films, and just to hang out and just, I've been to like a handful of Bigfoot conferences, and they get a little stuffy, they get a little egoist, they get a little awkward. I don't mind the awkward. In fact, I enjoy the awkward conversations, but I just wanted it to be fun, just to be fun, and not like, trying to make money. Money's funny, but time is the most important thing. So, and I did 2 Bigfoot Bonanzas. I promised myself after the first one, I'm like, I got to do one more because I want to have Lauren Coleman,
Oh, man. Yeah.
But I try not to do things more than twice because I don't want to be a one-trick pony doing another same trick twice.
That's cool.
But I do have something secret that I will come out with in the future. So.
Amazing. That's awesome. Before I forget, I do want to say my buddy Tate wants me to tell you thanks again for playing his film about Bluff Creek Project and all that good stuff. He says that was really awesome. Thank you again for that. So.
Oh yeah, that was fine. Yeah, he was great. I think we went to the liquor store across. He was so nervous before being in front of everybody. Like, it's gonna be awesome. Don't worry about it.
That's really so cool.
Yeah.
What else? So obviously you have that part of Bigfoot history you're involved with, but what else do you have going on, Kai? How do you explain what you do?
How do I explain it?
Yeah.
I love, some people don't like the word monster when it goes with Bigfoot. And that's their thing, hey, if they want to say, we'll get into the whole primate thing in a little bit, but but for me, my mottos have now becoming a documentary series that are in production right now. And the documentary series is called Keep Folklore Alive. And it's really just trying to keep these stories going.
Yes.
This really dates me, but 20 years ago in 2001, I went to Nepal for 5 weeks to collect these stories of the Yeti, because these stories were getting thinned out and forgotten about. The great grandkids were moving to Kathmandu, and then they're foo-foo these stories. And that happens, to this day. I'm taking a drive with my daughters up the Oregon coast in August. Yeah. So I'm like, ooh, I gotta go see the lake where the Concert Lake monster hung out, which was like a white albino Bigfoot that was supposedly from space, seen in 1959 to 1961. Yeah.
What is this called again?
The Concert, Conser Lake monster.
Wow.
He identified himself to, I think, a psychic, saying his name was Flix. My name is Flix. There are many like me, but I am the one called Flix. And you know,
It's
people,
amazing.
yeah, and people shot at it. And there's a record of all the sheriffs that went there. And this is such a small town that, you know, I'm like, oh, well, the descendants of these sheriffs probably work in the police force.
Oh
And so
yeah.
one of my favorite things to do is to call the local sheriff and say, hey, you busy? Do you have any, you know, one who's worked there for a long time or has any family members
Yeah.
that did back, you know, 40 years or 50 or 60 years ago that remember this incident, you know?
Oh man.
And that's fun because, you know, I send off my email and it gets passed around and then I get an email back from the sheriff's department, you know. So that's really cool. So yeah, keep folklore alive is
Jeez.
what I'm doing. I could tell you all about the calling sheriff's office for monsters because
That in itself is really cool. Like I've thought of doing that with libraries in the towns of Bigfoot sightings, and like, hey, do you have any old librarians that could chat? But like, that's really smart with the sheriff's officing. Like, has anything come out of that that's interesting? Or
one interesting one. This is going back a while, but there's a Bigfooter, more of a swamp ape hunter and taxi driver named Ronnie Roseman. And I think he lives in Oregon now. He's
okay,
amazing. Anyway, so Ronnie, more of a recliner Bigfoot hunter, so to speak. You
sure,
know what I mean?
yep,
But anyways, we're gonna go out there and record Ronnie at this place up on the coast in I think
okay,
Seattle. Anyways, and we're right by Grays Harbor, and
oh yeah,
and Ronnie's like, oh, we gotta go. I gotta go do some gambling. So we're like, okay, well, there's this, you know, in the peninsula, there's Grays Harbor, this casino, but there's this stretch where all these Bigfoot are seen. And I'm just
oh
like, you know, this is where like the sheriff, was it Hereford, you know, in the famous Great Harbor tracks, you know, which are
yeah,
like
yeah,
for good looking tracks.
mm-hmm.
And uh, and so I'm like, oh, what the hell? So I called the sheriff's office. I'm like, hey, this Sheriff Hereford, you know, I know he's retired, but does he still live
Oh
around the area?
man,
And they're like, no, he doesn't. And I said, okay, well, just curious, what's the general consensus? How does everyone feel about, you know, a Bigfoot, you know, in the, you know, on the force there? And they're like, oh yeah, we all believe in it. And a lot of us have seen it. And
wow.
I'm like, oh, I have my camera, and they're like, yeah, you're not going to get us saying that on camera, you know, like, but they're like, we'll tell you our stories, but we're not going to, you know, like, we don't need to
Oh
get
wow.
ridiculed.
Oh, that's a thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I mean, I bought a mold, a 1960 Peter Byrne mold, for a track off of a sheriff deputy, you know. So it's like it's cool.
Whoa.
It's cool when I don't want to say conservative, but it's cool when the police force
Yeah.
is, you know, believes in it, you know,
Oh
because you'd
man.
imagine them poo-pooing the whole thing, but they just have
Oh,
to
exactly.
they have to keep it on the DL.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Um, so I don't so do you mind saying like, so are you in Oregon then, or Northern California, or
I'm in the Bay Area.
okay,
So
okay.
I'm on a little island called Alameda, which is right across from San Francisco. In like the 1930s, it was like the Coney Island where people would come over and like 10 degrees warmer than San Francisco. But I work in
Oh,
San
nice.
Francisco.
Okay.
I grew up as a kid in Eureka near Willow Creek. So when I was
Oh, whoa.
a shrimp, you know, when I was a little kid, we'd always go to this old diner and eat dinner. And it was right across from the old Jim McLaren, the wood statue of the
Yeah.
Omaha.
Oh man. Yeah.
And that was, and I always tell this story because this story was, you know, I was at the age where like, hey, I figured out the Easter Bunny, which, you know, leads to the tooth fairy, which is it's like the big
Right.
guy, like Santa Claus is not real. But then,
Oh yeah.
you know, when you're up there, people talk about Bigfoot. It's not like a Santa Claus talk. It's like it's a real thing talk. And so that was like, and then some people don't believe in it and some people do. And so that was like,
Man.
yeah, it's cool to grow up with that.
So what time period is that then when you're growing up in that area?
Uh, Probably 1980 to 87. Yeah.
Wow.
1980 to 87. I think I moved out of
That's
there.
awesome.
87. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So
Dude.
totally, like when you think of those, like Stranger Things, like
Yeah,
those, I mean,
that's it.
that was me on my Huffy cruising through like the Redwood Gulch during like, times when like ET came out and all that jazz, and
Oh man.
yeah. And we
How
had
cool
like,
is that?
my friend's father had a Bigfoot sighting, and he didn't talk about it for years because it was super embarrassing. He was going to the bathroom when it happened. You want to
Oh
hear it?
man. Oh, do I
All
want to
right.
hear anything with Bigfoot? Go ahead.
So this is an embarrassing one for my friend's father, but I always think it's a great one. Where he was, his family was driving back from Willow Creek. They were going back to Eureka where they live. And it's like an
Okay.
hour and 10-minute drive or so. In his old 70s Lincoln Continental, because he always bought these
Nice.
things. And all of a sudden, well, this is the weird part. He said his stomach was hurting from the Mexican food he ate. And I don't even know if there's Mexican restaurants ever in Willow Creek. But anyways, he said his stomach was like gurgling over. So he pulled over to go to the bathroom, right in the bushes on the side of the road. Totally
Oh
embarrassing. But
no. Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere, right? It's totally dead at the middle of the night. This
Yeah.
family, my childhood friends in the back of the car, and this car comes around the corner, and he's like, realizes, oh, I'm nowhere even in the bushes. He's like squatting right on the side of the
Oh,
road. And he's just
okay.
like, oh my God, I'm nowhere even near the bushes. And then the car hits him with the high beams. And he's just like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. He's just thinking they're just hitting him the high beams just to be embarrassed. And he turns and look, like out of embarrassment, to look on the left. And what looks on the left, they're like 15 or 10 feet away is this Bigfoot that just churns and just goes thunk, thunk
Oh
up the
no
hill, thunk, and it's
way.
gone. And that's why they turned
Whoa.
the high beams on, was to see that, not him. And
Wow.
and he was just like beep, 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 jumped in his car, like freaked out, drove home, didn't talk about it because it was so embarrassing, and didn't talk about it for years.
Oh
Because I mean, if
man.
you're gonna have a Bigfoot sighting, you don't want to say it was like with your pants down, But
That's true. Yeah, that's a true thing. It's like, so what was going on? Well, but
yeah, yeah. But anyways, that's a
that's
funny
really
one.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's good. Um, I'm gonna well, so actually I'm curious, have you ever had any sightings yourself or anything of that nature?
No, never. I got, for me, I entered it, the Bigfoot world. It's weird I can say a Bigfoot world, but it is a Bigfoot world.
It's a world. It is a
Yeah.
world, yes.
The Bigfoot world, because I was interested in anthropology, and I was interested in the study of people
Okay.
and the study of cultures and the study of hoaxers. And there
Oh.
was an article, or there was a line that John Green wrote once about how, for all the hoaxers, for all the prints that are found and all the personalities of hoaxers, how there couldn't be that many hoaxers with this unique personality for all the tracks that are found. And I was like, oh, that's really
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
And then I think in 2003, there was this, the International Bigfoot Symposium. I think that's what it was called in Willow. And when I was there, I met like two people who had never believed in Bigfoot from two different worlds, and they told me their stories.
Yeah.
And those two stories made me want to know more.
Wow.
Yeah, because
That's awesome.
their stories were just like nonchalant, and I think that like the nonchalant sightings are it's like, all these guys go out there and they go Bigfoot hunting. Are they ever going to see one when they're looking for it? I don't. It's like people who just randomly see one. That's how it happens, I think. I mean,
That's nuts. But yeah, I totally agree. It's like there are some times when you talk to people and you're like, you can tell when a person is genuine and not lying. On the other hand, you can tell when a person is lying. That's kind of scary too. But um man. I want to touch on, what is Confusion Hill?
Oh, Confusion Hill is a 1949 roadside attraction that is up in the Redwoods. It's a little
Man.
right on the border of Mendocino and Humboldt. It's not in Bigfoot country. Although it's right near the Legend of Bigfoot, which is a gift shop that like just like pumps Bigfoot stuff out left and right. They're not really. Supposedly there was a Bigfoot sighting across the street from there. It's a little fishy in my book. But anyways, I can get back to that in a second. But the anyways, and so I befriended the owner 21 years ago, and I just do their social media. I come up with like t-shirt designs.
Nice.
I get like I bought an old fortune telling machine. I write the fortunes for it, stuff like that.
That is cool.
It inspired the TV show Gravity Falls. It's like a Disney show.
I was gonna ask because I was like, "There's no way that this is not related."
Yeah,
because it's totally Gravity Falls, which is so cool.
Yeah, in fact, they have a statue, the Bill Cipher statue.
Yes,
they have a big one there, and so I just love it. It's kooky.
Man.
There's a old 1926 or 27 hotel that's like up the road that I stay at. I update their ghost journal that the guests and the employees, they tell their ghost stories, and I keep it up to date. It's like almost 40 pages long now. It's crazy. But
so I'm seeing definitely a common thread here where it's like you are very concerned that stories from the past do not get lost, much like an actual like folklorist would do. Is that what you consider yourself then?
I don't know. I've never even thought of saying that out loud, but
dude, it's like, yeah.
Preservation. I'm all about preservation of stories. I love story. I love hearing stories, love storytelling. And so folklore is pretty much just a story with a little bit of extra super nature, which is supernatural.
Yeah. Totally. Have you, so you've collected these stories. Have you ever like put them in a book, or like you're just kind of putting them in random things here and here?
I'm a typical Pisces procrastinator. So like even the Yeti expedition, I've got I've got footage that's 20 years old. So eventually that'll be just like a passion project that I'll put out. I should have done it then, but when I'm 25, like I was goofing around, and so just goofing. So now, I think with Keep Folklore Alive, we've got the horse blinds on because we got to do this. And the two fellows who, the director and the producer, the director is Brad Abrahams, and he directed Love and Saucers. I don't know if you've seen that. But him and Matt, who's the producer, they did, it's called Swan Song of the Skunk Ape, and has Dave Shealy, in Florida.
Yep.
And it was so good. They sent it to me when I did the Bigfoot Bonanza, like, hey, it's 10, 11 minutes short. Would you put it in? And I watched it, and I'm like, I showed it twice a day, I think all 3 days of the first Bigfoot Bonanza. Wow. I was like blown away. And then when I had a Space Visitors Film Festival, they submitted their alien one, and it blew me away. So finally I was just like, hey fellas, I've got an idea for this documentary series. So they went for it. So we filmed 1.5 episodes. We went to film one on the Telos, which is, sorry for everyone who's into Bigfoot, they're gonna be like, what? Although there is Bigfoot.
So here's the thing. If they're listening to this podcast, we talk about I talked to Cliff Barackman about the Grateful Dead and stuff like that. So it's not just Bigfoot. It's kind of like the story behind the people. It's more than just Bigfoot, but yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. I'm going to, hopefully I'll see Cliff in August when I go up there.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah. He's awesome. Anyways, what were we talking about?
Talking about Telos.
Oh yeah. So the first episode is about Telos and the underground Lemurians who live underneath Mount Shasta, who also fly to space. And, they do this thing. But mostly it's about the people who believe in Telos, because they're the ones that keep it alive,
Right. Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then the second episode is called Support Your Local Monster. So it has, the first monster we filmed was the Lake Worth monster down in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. Yep. I've heard of that one.
It's like
a little bit.
Yep. Goat meow. It's ironic because it's like a white goat meow. But people always want it to be a Bigfoot. It seems
Hmm.
a lot of things people want to be a Bigfoot.
That's weird. Yeah, that is weird.
I don't know why.
Hmm.
They can just say, "Hey, it's okay. It's a goat man." There's other
Right.
weird goat man sightings. Like doesn't have to turn into like a Bigfoot. I don't know. Yeah. And so we got two more monsters after that. We're still playing with.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know if I think I'm supposed to keep it a secret for now, but
We'll keep it a secret for now because episodes I don't have to edit are the easiest episodes. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know how that is. But oh man, that sounds like a killer documentary series, and I think it's the right time for that to come out too, for people to remember like one one thing that comes up is the knowledge of the world is not just in the internet, it's in the previous generations, right? And
Yeah.
so you have to not be afraid to talk to them or to go to the library and look up these old articles and newspapers and learn how to use a microfiche and stuff like that. And like, dig into these old stories, which, I'm going to start to do that once, get a little bit more time. But um, I actually have a question about Confusion Hill.
Sure.
This is from a gentleman called Bigfoot Anonymous. Have you noticed? Yeah. Okay. So have you noticed, do animals react differently in the vortex? I don't really know the context of this question. I'm guessing there's an area in Confusion Hill. It's like a vortexy thing,
It's
maybe.
a vortexy thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they recommend people not to take their animals in there because
Okay.
what it does is it makes you feel a little seasick
Oh.
because it's like it's a gravity house. So in the 1940s, there was, surprisingly, all these gravity houses that were discovered that had the same layout inside.
What?
Well, I mean,
Hmm.
someone with a really great blueprint of a gravity house probably went around the whole U.S. and said,
That's
"Hey,
funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're a 2-day drive from the other gravity house I sold the plans to." Um,
That's awesome.
but it could be also like ancient burial ground. It could be a buried alien craft. It could be a magnetic force of vortex. It could be what is it? I mean, there's something like
There's a whole site. There's like, I saw the picture of the sign. There's like 7 different things that are
oh
listed,
yeah,
right? Like it's pretty
yeah,
intense.
yeah. It's a
Oh man.
registered vortex, for the Vortex Society.
Whoa,
Uh,
what's the Vortex Society?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
they're
dude, this sounds awesome. Like, I've got to look that up.
yeah, I think they are called the Vortex Research Society. But
That's awesome.
I don't know. I can hang out in there for a long time now,
Oh,
and not feel that bad. It all depends. Yeah, there's days in there
yeah.
I feel woozy, but it's
Oh
not
my
like I hang
goodness.
out in the gravity house all day when I go there.
Jeez, that's awesome. Do you go up to Portland and hang out a lot?
I haven't been to Portland in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Last time I did, I
Okay.
hung out with Flippy though, because Craig Flippy lives
Dude,
up.
he was a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, when I
He
met
was
him,
fun.
I met him in 2003 at the Bigfoot Symposium, and he drove his moped up there,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he was living in Long Beach. So then, go figure. I don't think I was living in Los Angeles at the time, but then something like this is going back 16, 17 years ago. I was living in Los Angeles, and I met Cliff Barrickman at a Fourth of July gathering at Daniel Perez, who writes the Bigfoot Times, at his house. And then I found out he lives in at the time he lived in Long Beach, right near Flippy. So then we all hung out in Cliff's backyard, and Cliff was so
What?
awesome. He was just like, we spent the whole day hanging out, drinking beers, and he was like making copies of all of his casts. And I blame Cliff now because now like I have like this like maybe 25 or 30
Wow.
Bigfoot tracks in my closet, and I keep on collecting these rare ones. I got hooked on collecting
Oh
these.
man. That
Yeah,
is awesome.
he probably has 100 of them now, but um,
Just
yeah,
just hanging out with Cliff Barrickman and Danny Perez and Craig Flip. That's got to be. Oh, that's a wild memory, dude. Eventually I want to talk to Danny Perez.
Oh, he's great,
dude. That he did the episode with Cliff and Bobo, and that was like one of my favorite things from I think it was 2020 it came out. And but dude, that guy, that's a wild dude.
Yeah, well, he's got an egg of knowledge, that guy.
Oh man,
I've been subscribing to his newsletter, the Bigfoot Times, for I want to say 20 years. I've been getting it, and I swear I look forward to every single issue. I rip that sucker open,
yeah,
and I read it as soon as I can, and it's great because it has the inside skinnies. It's got good book reviews. It's got, I don't know. I enjoy it.
I got to pony up. Well, it's $20 a year. I just got to do it.
I think it's $18.50.
Wow, that's
I think
incredible.
I think it only goes up like 50 cents every other year or something like that.
Because postage or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no like anthology of the previous issues, is there?
I don't know.
I don't think there is.
I'd have to bust out my old calculator, but if he's doing it for like 20 or 22 years or something like that, maybe 20 years,
man,
times 12, whatever that is, that's a whole bunch of issues. That's a pretty. It's like a 2 or 3 pager. Depends on how much he's got to talk about.
Yeah.
Jeez. But he goes right in there. He goes right for the jugular. So for guys who are and gals who are just getting into Bigfoot, they may be like totally confused getting an issue and being like, what are they talking about?
What's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I like, though. I like really, really getting into it for sure.
Right in the deep end.
He had the story about like, see, I never realized that they didn't know where the Patterson Gimlin film was like developed. And to me, that was like a mind explosion. Like that's a documentary right there, man. Someone's got to make that, but I don't know.
It's interesting. Maybe I'm going on touchy subjects here, but but Daniel, like, he is a big believer in the PG film. Yeah. Yet, one time he wrote an article about how he found I think it was a magazine ad that came out like a few months before the PG film was filmed. And the ad was for the 16 millimeter camera that Roger used. And it shows 2 cowboys on a horseback with a camera. And it came out a few months before the PG film. So it was like, interesting,
Well, hey, it's whatever.
And that's the thing for me is when people ask me, like, do you believe in that one? Do you believe in this one? And I said, it keeps the story alive. I believe in it. I believe in the people that believe in it. Like, to me, like a story of a Bigfoot making tracks and someone being surprised and seeing it is just as amazing as some guy who goes out there on his own on his day off and makes these tracks and then convinces his friends to go look at it and then keep it a secret for 20 years because he doesn't want to
like the guy that made the huge penguin. Was it like penguin tracks in Florida or something like that? Have you ever heard of that guy? Look, that guy, I think it's like space penguins or something. I may be totally off on this, but like there's a guy who pretty much hoaxed people for 20 or 30 years, made him think that they're like giant penguins on the Florida coast because he had like these huge tracks he made. But at the end of the day, it's still a good story, but I do believe in it, but I have people, all sorts of different spectrums come on, which is fun to chat. I would love. Yes,
I have a question. Do you find it interesting that so many people are into Bigfoot that say that it's a hiding primate, yet surprisingly, those people are not into the study of primates?
Oh boy.
right? Like
That's fun. Okay.
there's something different. There's something different between a Bigfoot than a primate, or else these people would be all about going to the zoo and looking at gorillas all day. They'd be all about chimpanzees. They'd be reading all of Jane
Yeah.
Goodall's books, but no, I
Hmm.
think Bigfoot is bigger.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll ask you. So I usually ask this at the end, but like,
Oh,
what do you personally, when you think of Bigfoot, like, what are you thinking you're looking at?
what am I looking at? Like behind me
Yeah.
right
Well,
now?
is it
Uh,
like you could say, is it a type of humanoid? Is it a primate? Is it supernatural? Is it from another dimension? There's a lot of
I
different camps.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just finished reading maybe a few weeks ago. I finished reading Lyle Blackburn's Momo book,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how there's Bigfoot sightings with these flying saucers or UFOs, and
Hmm.
maybe there's the connection is these UFOs are like dropping these Bigfoot off,
Hmm.
almost kind of like a SPCA. They're just like, okay, we caught a dog, let's go throw it, or let's go just throw it somewhere where it can live. It's off our area, sort of
Oh
thing.
man,
Um,
dude.
I don't know. And then some people are like, they're like, no, I don't want to, like just like John Green is like, I don't want to talk about UFOs. I don't want to, that's like
Okay.
that part's fooey. Some people don't want to talk about that connection. For a long time, I was like that too. I'm like, no,
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, I didn't want to talk about flying saucers. I only wanted to talk about Bigfoot. Although for me, Bigfoot was always it was more of like a spiritual thing,
Hmm.
not a
Okay.
primate. Um, for me, that was my thing for a long time. Just because I mean, what the hell? You can't. This thing just disappears. It's not like you
Yeah,
know.
a lot of people do think that, or there are these stories where it's like you see there's the disappearing, or I've talked to guys that have seen Bigfoot controlling orbs. I've
Yeah,
talked to gentlemen, like there's some really wild stories out there, and it's like the thing is you can't tell if it's, you can't say no, that's not true, or that's not true. No one can prove, you know.
yeah.
You have to go by what people are saying.
There was a book I read a long time ago, maybe like 15 years ago, called Valley of the Skookum, I think.
That sounds
And
familiar.
yeah, Sally, I can't remember Sally's full name, but anyways, and in that book, the Bigfoot would disappear, and then she would see these orbs,
Hmm.
and she said, and then she would smell the smell, and so I think in the book she says, well, there's a connection that the smell is something they can't control, or maybe it's a warning that they're appearing or disappearing in that area, so it's like a heads up.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
That's some weird stuff. That's some
Yeah,
weird. You must have a killer. I'm thinking that you have a killer book collection.
I have a pretty good book collection. Yeah,
It's intense, isn't it? You probably got some super deep cuts. It's a guess that you are a guy who hits because I'm kind of like this too. You hit the thrift stores, the flea markets, and you know what you're looking for, and no one else is looking for it, and you
yeah,
get all the good stuff.
yeah. When
Yeah.
when um, when I when I find copies of the "Do of Almost No Man Exist," the Roger Patterson book,
Copies, like you found
like
multiple copies.
when I have
Oh
more than,
my
because
goodness.
I have one and mine's beat up, and when I find a good one, like I give it to a friend who doesn't have it,
Wow.
because like
Good for you.
I don't need to
Good for
hoard
you.
things. I don't need to
Yeah.
make $100. I mean, I do, but
Yeah.
I mean, if I can give if it'll make my friend happy, then that's more important,
Right. That's awesome. That is
If I
so
sell
cool.
if I sell it to him for $100, no, I'm just joking.
Yeah, win-win. Yeah, like
No.
well, probably out in your area, you're finding more stuff like that. Like I live in the Midwest in Iowa, and you just don't see the weird stuff, unfortunately. If you do, it's few and far between.
Yeah.
But oh man, I would love to go thrifting in Oregon. My
Oh,
goodness.
if you go near Eureka, the bookstores in Eureka, you can get so many Bigfoot paperbacks that are just like, oh, here's
Oh my goodness.
Renee Hinden paperback, just right off the bat. There's a John Green. And then you realize, oh, someone just donated their whole entire collection to this like secondhand, bookstore or something.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
And they're always like autographed too,
Really?
I think I have like 2 or 3 John Green books that are autographed from him. And so when I've seen him maybe 2 or 3 times in person, and I've never had to like ask for his autograph because the books I have
already have it. You just trace over the one that's already in here.
Yeah. One time my band was on tour up in Washington, and it was right after 9/11, so they weren't letting anyone go into the Canadian border unless you had your passport, your driver's license, and your birth certificate, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, and we were gonna go play a show in Vancouver, but I told my friend, I'm like, oh, let's take the long way around and we'll go to Harrison Hot Springs and go visit John Green. And I called John Green, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna come over. And so then we get to the border patrol, right? And there's like the Mountie guy, the classic Mountie. And he's like, oh yeah, you need to have your passport. And I was like, this is like impromptu trip. Going through this way, you had to have your passport. I think going through the other way, you didn't. But anyways, I was just like, yeah, we don't have it. And I'm like, we're just here to see John Green. And he goes, oh, John Green, the Sasquatch hunter? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, you guys can go. And then he goes, but I'll tell you, I don't believe in the Sasquatch, but I do believe in the Ogopogo. And then and that was pretty cool. That was interesting.
That's awesome.
He believed in one, but he didn't believe in the other. But then he let us in, and everyone else was turning back.
Dude, so I've got a question out of that. So how do you get to the point where you become on a personal level like that with John Green, and you're like, I'll just call up John Green, beep boop beep, and like, how does that happen?
I think I met him for the first time at the in Willow Creek. There's the China Flat Museum.
Yep.
And they had like their opening of their new Bigfoot wing, and it had he was there, Jeff Meldrum was there, Daniel Perez was there.
Yep.
I think Bobo was there too. I think there was a picnic. And anyways, and so I met him then, and then I can't remember if he was a talker at the Bigfoot Symposium, but then I went to his house in Harrison Hot Springs. Yeah, and shot there. Wow. He's real hard, just a super sweetheart, that guy. But I think through Jeff Meldrum, he just gave me everyone's phone numbers back then, because it was just like you just called people. So I called,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I called Renee Hinden, and we just shot the breeze,
Oh my goodness.
About like bachelor stuff, smoking like Swisher sweet cigars and cooking, like, he cooks. I had just watched a documentary at that time called Sasquatch Odyssey. I think it's one of the best Bigfoot documentaries out there. I had the director come out. He lives in LA to the second Bigfoot Bonanza. His name is Peter von Puttkamer. Peter. Anyways, Peter's really nice. And the documentary is about the Big Four, like Peter Byrne, Renee Hinden, John Green, and one other I can't think right now, Grover Krantz. And so Jeff Meldrum had all these guys' numbers. He's like, oh yeah, here's Grover Krantz's number, and here's so before I went.
Man, that's awesome.
So I was able to talk to all of them. Like when we went to Nepal, I used Peter Byrne's Sherpa guide. Before I went, I called Grover Krantz. I'm just like, okay, what do we do if we find any evidence? And
no way.
He was really awesome because he was just like, well, just he's just like, take as many photos as you can, whatever the situations happen. And then after the phone call was over, like 5 minutes later, he calls me back. He's like, almost like it was supposed to be a tap line. He's like, on your trek, take a gun. If you see one, shoot it. Cut off its head and bury it. And then I'll come back.
What?
See if you can bury the lower jaw. And I was just like, yes. This
That's
is the
Grover.
call.
Grover Krantz said that.
Yeah, yeah. It was
That
so
is so amazing.
I was like, oh my God, yes. I mean, he was like a pro shoot for the proof kind of guy,
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
But
but
wow.
it was really cool for him to say, he's like, yeah, it's like bury the bottom jaw or both of them if you can. I was like, of course, I'm not gonna like break open a head, Um,
Oh man, that's
yeah,
intense. That's
yeah,
really intense.
that was
That's a
pretty
cool
fun.
story, dude.
Yeah.
Um, I have not seen Sasquatch Odyssey. I'm gonna have to check that out. My favorite old school is In Search of Bigfoot with Robert W. Morgan.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I love that
Sounds
stuff,
good.
man. Oh man. He is I would love to interview him, but he's past the point of being interviewed, I think.
Oh,
He's extremely up in years, but he just seems, man, that's a cool film. That's really cool.
I can't
Yeah.
remember. Was he a speaker at one of Mark DeWorth's Ohio Bigfoot conferences? I can't
I
remember.
I think I'm not sure about that. I think he was honored in some way at one of
Yeah,
them, you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
We
But
have the
cool
we have the
dude.
same we have the same hairdo, me and him.
That's true. That's true. Oh my goodness. Uh I was reading through the article that you sent me that you wrote. And so besides all this Bigfoot stuff and besides all this the Confusion Hill stuff, like you are pretty much a world traveler.
Yeah.
How does
Uh,
that happen? Like that's you do some cool stuff.
oh, I gotta keep on going.
Yeah.
I gotta go somewhere new. Yeah, I just start reading and I start falling in love with some weird situation, and then I've got to go check it out. There was like a decade where I was really obsessed with the kind of funny situations that Hercules would get into that weren't
Oh
a part of
man.
his 12 labors. They were like this after the labors, there was this just the side goofing arounds that he did. And
Yeah.
so I went to Greece like 3 times to go to these like random, places where, he fought this,
Wow.
saw that, and I don't know. I love to do this kind of stuff. I spent, whatever. Yeah. Spent
Yeah.
like a month on Easter Island. I was into the
What?
Red Baron, so I went to the potato field on the 100-year anniversary of the Red Baron crash with a whole bunch of other history nerds, and it was great too because every guy brought a bottle of champagne. There was probably like
Okay.
20 of us, from all over the world, all into the Red Baron, and we all had a bottle of champagne in this potato field.
Dang.
Yeah.
I mean, you've looked for werewolves, right? Ish.
I bumped around Transylvania to try to collect like werewolf
Okay.
stories, but
Oh, right.
it was
Yeah.
a little more like, it was a little more harder to get the Roma people to want to talk about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't like obviously, I mean, it is like Transylvania, like in the movies. It's crazy because you go there and it's a step back in time.
Wow.
But yeah, there's a point where it's just like that would be the equivalent of going to like a Native American reservation and being like, oh yeah, how often do you see a Bigfoot? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Good call. Yeah. You don't want to
like
do that. Yeah.
the,
Not
the good
cool.
the good stories don't leave the res. Like
Yeah.
there's those stories I hear that that come from reservations that like a Bigfoot hunter will be like, oh my God, but then they'll never go on there because that's like,
Yeah.
you're going on someone else's like life,
Yeah.
and
You want to
culture.
be super respectful of that, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't mess around with stuff like that. Totally.
But my
Yeah.
cousin, I'll tell you really quick. My cousin
Okay. Okay.
he goes salmon fishing every year in the Olympic Peninsula on a
Oh
Native
yeah.
American
Yeah.
reservation. And so for every year for I don't know how long, past a decade, the same guide, he's also a tracker for the FBI. And he
Ooh.
tells my cousin like every year it's like, okay, he's like the law enforcement of the reservation too. But every year, like he gets the calls like Bigfoot's raiding the smoking salmon, the salmon's hanging out to smoke, or Bigfoot problems, and he'll go out and he'll follow the tracks and never find where they go. And they have sightings, and the elders have like, VHS footage, that's like locked, sealed tight, and
Really?
they're not gonna
way.
let it out, but people filming in their backyard a Bigfoot, so
that's mind-blowing to me, but I could totally see it happening.
And so
man,
it would be obviously a huge taboo to ever release that, because it would, it's dishonor your entire family.
Totally.
But so for now we have like, Patterson, and all the other footage we have is kind of
right.
The
gold standard seems to be the Patterson Gimlin film still, I would say.
But,
yeah. I bet when you went down to look for the Bell Witch too.
I just went to go check out the I had to go check it out. That was like, I came across I was in this like occult bookstore in San Francisco like 10 years ago. I was like, what are these little pamphlets up there, on the top of this bookshelf? And one of them was the Echoes of the Bell Witch, and the second one was the other. The Echoes of the Bell Witch was the second one, and I forget the first one was the title of the first Bell Witch book. But it was like, an old printing of it. And I was like, oh my gosh. I still guiltily I have not seen Seth Breedlove's Bell Witch.
I was just gonna ask you, have you seen it, dude? God, you've got to watch it in the next few days. I'm not even kidding. Like, it is probably one of the most intense I would say the most intense films he's made, and it's super well done. That you'll love it. You'll love it. The stories that are just like the folklore that's presented in that film about the Bell Witch and the town and other things you won't be expecting. It's super good, man. Definitely check it out. Yeah,
I look forward to it. I'm always a supporter of Seth Breedlove.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Oh man, I'm so pumped that they get to go up and hang out with the Olympic Project for their next On the Trail of Bigfoot soon. That's going to be a good time.
That guy gets around so much. He's
does, man.
Does he freeze time to go and do all these filming? I do not know. He probably sleeps like 3 hours a night. I do not get it.
I think you're right. How do you I feel like you have some sort of connection to Ape Canyon. Have you done any cool Ape Canyon stuff?
I went hiking up one day. But it didn't take enough water to go like the whole caboodle. And someone else, I don't know if it was Craig Flippy or someone else went up to Ape Canyon. I like the story a lot. But no, I only went a little bit of hiking. I didn't even get up to where the spot was. I think at that time when I went there, it wasn't even where they actually pinpointed the actual spot of the cabin.
Okay.
Which now I think they know exactly where it was now, right?
Oh yeah, Mark Marcel has totally pinpointed that sucker down. Oh, that was fun to talk to him. My goodness. Ugh. He's a fun dude. I have a section of questions that I ask everyone. And I think it's fun because everyone has a different viewpoint, and it's fun for the audience to see where the person takes it. So we are going to launch into that. So get ready here. So the first one sticks about 25% of the time. So we'll see if it works. What should I ask you that I didn't know enough to ask? It's super awkward.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, that's fine.
Because I'm only going back like a half hour of time. What did I not ask you that I should have asked?
It pretty much, it's a weird way to say it too. So like, if I knew you better, is there anything that I would have asked you that I didn't?
I don't know. No.
Okay. All right. Oh, what was the band that you were playing with?
Oh, well, it was the Red Barons at the time. Hence the Red Baron thing. But I've been in like 20 plus bands now.
Really?
Oh
man.
They were just short-lived, just for fun. Have a band that's like, hey, let's make a band. Let's play like 7 shows and call it quits. Put out on 45, put out a little record, something like that. So yeah.
Which I think that's amazing. So you weren't like no like crazy, like I was on TRL with Carson Daly back in the day, like just kind of like indie stuff, which I think is way better, you know.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
I've always been in like garage rock bands, and it's ironic now that like I haven't played live for maybe 2 or 3 years. Now I put on
Hmm.
shows, but I
Okay.
don't really, I, I don't really need to be on stage anymore. But then like
Gotcha.
all of a sudden, like some what is it, German or British guy wants to put out an album for a band I was in like 10 years ago and wants to pay for our tour in Europe. I'm just like,
What?
I'm all,
Really?
I mean, it's
Hmm.
cool, but it's like 10 years too late, a little bit. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's interesting.
I don't
Okay.
want to,
Well,
I'm not, I don't know.
who knows? Who knows what the
Who
future
knows?
holds?
Yeah.
What are you most excited about right now? This could be anything.
Oh, right now, oh, well, today was really fun because today for Keep Folklore Alive, like, I sent off and have been emailing with a person who communicates with dolphins and swims with them, and
Whoa.
also has like channels and has I don't know if she has interactions with cosmic beings, but she's into the space as well as the sea beings.
Okay. Okay.
And then I'm in contact with this fellow named Magnus who leads an elf school in Iceland, um,
Nice.
which I've graduated from. But we, plan to go back there and film him and another lady who's like an ambassador for the elves to the Icelandic government.
Wow.
Uh,
Oh
and
man.
there was someone else I did, and then also at the same time I emailed the Park and Recs in Oakland because they have a lake that had a small lake that has a lake monster. So for
Okay.
Halloween this year, I'm the vice president of a really funny historical group. We're going to put up a bronze plaque for this lake monster, the Lake Merritt Monster.
That's
So
awesome.
I mean that was this afternoon.
Do you just go around putting plaques up and different weird stuff in California or
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
it's a gold rush era historical group.
Okay.
Um, and so yeah, we put up all sorts of funny plaques, old haunted saloons,
That's awesome.
black bar, this strange, strange obscure history.
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's really
Oh
fun.
man. The next question is, I feel it could be a super grenade, but what are the top books someone getting into Bigfoot should have on their bookshelf?
Ivan Sanderson, Almost Snowman,
Yeah.
Legend Come to Life. That's like that's the Bible or the Koran of Almost
Okay.
Snowman.
Yeah, right, right.
Almost Snowman was my true first love.
Okay.
Let's see. I would say a John Green. Any of the John Greens was. I'm trying to think of what is it? In Search of the Unknown. I'm trying to think of the name of the titles. Um,
There's like the 3 pamphlet type books,
yeah,
like those
yeah.
ones you're talking about?
I have
Yeah.
one about yeah. I have one about 10 feet away from me right now. I
Nice.
just because they're his point of view. I, I don't personally believe all the things that he says, but
Okay.
it's great to have that point of view and to know that point of view. It's just like when people like say, it's like when you have friends who are like, you have a good friend who's like the opposite spectrum of the political party that you favor. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like you need to have a friend like that. You need to, because it's important. It keeps the balance, of knowledge, or
Hmm.
else you're putting all your eggs in one basket if you don't,
Right.
even with Bigfoot. Um,
That's true.
yeah. So,
Okay. All right.
so
Cool.
that one, and I don't know. That'd be a tough one. I don't know about the third one right now. There's a Peter Byrne paperback that I
Hmm.
like a lot because he's a good storyteller.
Oh man. Yeah, from what I've heard of him,
Yeah.
super amazing life story. Uh,
Yeah.
is there a book that has escaped your grasp that you are trying to find and you just can't get it?
Um, Let me see. Not not yet. I read that one book. It was called The Creature. Did you hear about that one? It's like a little paperback.
No,
Um,
Never heard of it.
Good. Just try to escape my grasp. No. Not really. Like I was able to
Cool.
the Falk Monster, I was able when Smokey Crabtree was alive, I called
Okay.
him.
Yeah.
I ordered his book, and then it was so good. I ordered his second book, which was kind of, was a little sleeper, but still good because it's just, his day to day with a monster in it, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
So I like books like that,
That's cool. Oh, I slowly building up my collection for sure. See, I got into this kind of because of COVID. So like I still haven't I've never had my experience of going out or going to a conference or anything because I've just been stuck in Iowa. I go to the Van Meter Visitor Festival. There's the one reference for the episode. But that's my thing I can do because it's so close to Des Moines. But someday we'll get out into the crazy country and go to California and hit all those spots that you mentioned, and probably go to Confusion Hill too. That would be pretty legit.
I think you have a Gravity House pass, and actually that means I'll probably be hanging out with you in September when I come out for the Van Meter Visitor Festival.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. That book is really good. The three guys.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's got a lot more than people would imagine in that book. Like if you haven't read The Van Meter Visitor by Chad and Kevin, it's a good book. It's the only book too, but that's easily accessible. What are your thoughts about Mothman? Do you have any Mothman thoughts?
I'll be honest. I never really got into the Mothman. I found the character Ingrid Kolb, who is, the guy who I thought that story
is a weird dude.
That story is what blew my mind. And that is a similar situation where hey, maybe he's here because he's trying to look for this Mothman that got loose, and he's like the dog catcher, which is
totally.
Or they released it and they want to see how it's doing, just like the saucers and the Bigfoot. I mean, who knows? But that story happening at the same time, that's what really got me.
It's weird. Yeah, totally.
And Seth, his last, both of the Mothman documentaries he put out were really good. So those were my first exposure. Other than reading a couple pages about it in a book.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool. That is cool.
It's funny because that shows how regional monsters get, even in the United States.
Exactly.
In fact, I was thinking today, whatever, you go to Nepal, it's the Yeti. You go to Bhutan next door, it's the Migu. You go to China, it's the Urin. So it changes its names. So it's interesting in the United States how people will toggle back and forth from Bigfoot to Sasquatch when Sasquatch is what they call it in Canada. So I always try never to call it Bigfoot. I never try to call it Sasquatch in the United States, and I always try to call it Sasquatch in Canada.
That's funny. Yeah,
just because it's a regional thing. I don't know, but then
crazy.
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about Dogman?
I haven't got into it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. In fact, I just this doesn't do it for me yet. Maybe something will spark it for me. But this morning I found myself listening to a whole bunch of interviews about the lizard man.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool to interview the guy now, because now he saw it when he was 17 in 1980 something. He's 50 years old now,
Yeah, totally.
That's more. I think I'm more into the whole Scooby-Doo-ish sort of situation.
Yeah.
Even the Concert Lake monster. There was an article I was sleuthing through old art newspapers. They're now gone. And it was saying how the Concert Lake monster in Oregon wasn't seen after the liquor cache, like whatever. They busted all liquor smugglers or whatever. And it was just like, oh, that's like an ideal situation where like these liquor smugglers scare people off by getting a Bigfoot suit, but then it attracts all these Bigfoot hunters, and then they've got a situation, and then
that
they
is hilarious.
Oh
man, that's funny. Last question. What do you consider the top evidence for Bigfoot?
I want to say, honestly, it's stories of people who are witnesses that never believed in it. That's what me, like I mean, it's not my story to tell, but I don't think that they're really in the Bigfoot world, so I'll tell their stories right now. That's cool. Is that cool?
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So when I was in at the Bigfoot Symposium in 2003, I met a guy. He had moved to the United States from India, and like a lot of people, he's like, I had a job in New York. I rented a convertible, and I was like, I'm gonna drive across the whole United States to see the country, right?
Yeah.
He gets to this is like 1996 or 1995. He goes through Southern Ohio, and he's driving, and he sees a Bigfoot in the middle of the road, right?
Wow.
He's like, a year or two goes by. He's at work. He's like, one of them is the internet's now out, and he's just like, oh yeah, I saw one of those when I first moved to the US. And it's like coworker's like, no, you didn't. He's like, yeah, I did. He's like, no, you didn't. And he thinks, for the first time, he thinks, oh, what he thought, the guy was jealous that he just saw like a really rare animal. Yeah. And then he finds out through the internet that like, no, he saw something that people don't believe in, but then some people do. But he was just like, I saw this. He's like, I saw this thing. And so he goes to the Bigfoot conference because no one believes what he saw, but he saw what he saw. And he didn't really think, he was surprised what he saw, but he didn't think it was like this, like, such a, I don't want to say paranormal, but it's such a situation that people don't believe in. And then at the Bigfoot conference, there was a lady who had inherited a grandmother's house on the reservation there, the Hooper Reservation. And she was telling me, she's like, she was all by herself, and I sat next to her at lunch. I remember this. And I'm like, oh, do you live nearby? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I didn't believe in any of this stuff, but I inherited my grandmother's house. Me and my daughter live there. The school bus comes, and she just tells me the story. The school bus comes in the mornings on Mondays, picks up all the kids at like 7:45 or something. And she's like, I went outside with my cup of coffee, hadn't even drank it, and to go see my daughter. And I turned to the left, and there she is communicating with this Bigfoot. She caught the Bigfoot, the Bigfoot was reaching over her fence, picking the apples from her apple tree that was on her side of the fence. And she goes, here's this thing that I thought never existed, that my grandma told me about, that I just thought was like the boogeyman, and I never believed it. And there it is, like before 8 o'clock on a Monday morning while I'm getting my daughter to go to school, and I haven't even started my coffee yet.
You're like, let me drink my coffee, dude.
Yeah. And so I got the two of them to talk, her and the fella from India, because
cool.
Because they didn't believe in it, and they didn't feel they felt nervous about telling their story to anybody. And I was just like, carefree and just, shooting the breeze. I could tell that they had a story, but they were like kind of hiding by themselves,
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool story.
Yeah, it was like I was playing, like it was like I was the Cupid on the dating show, getting the Bigfoot people.
That's awesome. Oh,
I'll let Flippy to tell the Bigfoot dating. There's a funny, anyways.
Well,
perhaps
another episode. Who knows?
What happens at Bigfoot conferences stays at Bigfoot conferences.
I've heard that from multiple people, in different respects. But anyways, man, this has been like super fun hanging out. Thank you so much for coming on, Kai.
Yeah.
How can people keep up to date with what you got going on? And that can be a weird question to ask, It's pretty much, if you have any like stuff to plug, like please go ahead. You have like social media presence, stuff like that.
Oh God, I'm horrible at that. I'm always like, I always try to hide behind the green curtains, like, pulling this, the knobs.
Totally.
I don't like to get underneath the spotlight very often. But let's see, that's a great question. On your show is the best place to find out about what I'm doing.
Wow, that's an honor. Thank you.
Because my Instagram is just like Confusion Hill, and I just focus on Confusion Hill. My regular like Facebook page is just like whatever, goofy stuff. I mean,
right.
I don't even have a picture of myself on there, I don't think. I don't know. I keep it a little secret.
Hey, that's no sweat. These are the best interviews, because it's like people are like, well, you really interviewed Craig Flippy? I'm like, yeah, what's the big deal? And they're like, he does that. And it's like, all right, cool. So I'm always excited to interview people that usually don't get out there, which is fun. So thank you again for coming on. You are cool with hanging out for a few more minutes? I've got a few more questions, maybe prompts to ask you for the Patreon. So the
juicy Patreon, stuff. Show you my
totally.
Western Bigfoot Society.
Oh, that's cool. Is that old school?
It's old school. Yeah, Ray Crow, he had the Western Bigfoot Society in Portland, and they'd have really good meetings.
Is that single stitch? Is that single stitch shirt probably?
Yeah, it's kind of got like saying. No, it's got the it's so awesome.
Oh, that's legit, dude. Oh, that's awesome.
I think he changed it to the International Bigfoot Society. I'm old school, I guess.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, if you want to hear that, you just go to patreon.com/Bigfoot Society, and you can help support the podcast and listen to Kai's extra stuff. But thanks again for hanging out with us, listeners, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for coming on, Kai.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you, everybody.